Hola, hola, and welcome back and bienvenidos to Tech and Tequila, the podcast where tech innovation meets life's boldest adventures. I'm your host, Kat Lopez Shelby, your go-to Techie Chica, trusted tech advisor, digital nomad, or what I like to call local voyager, and of course, tequila enthusiast. Each week, we sip, strategize, and spotlight the tools, stories, and the people helping entrepreneurs, creatives navigate our fast-paced digital world. And I could not be more excited because today we have Mr. Emilio Tirado on from Coro. Hi, Emilio.
What's up, everybody?
Yay! In case you don't know, Coro is a cybersecurity platform that's truly changing the game, especially for small and medium-sized businesses. We're talking about real protection without the enterprise level price tag. If you've ever felt like cybersecurity was too complicated or too out of reach, this episode is for you. And Emilio is here to break down how Coro keeps you business safe, streamlined, and ready for whatever comes next. But we would not be Tech and Tequila if we did not do a quick tequila highlight. So first, let me get into it. And I feel like we have highlighted Pantalones a couple of times, but I feel like maybe that's going to be, it's going to be a month for Pantalones in May. You know, we just celebrated Cinco de Mayo, and I have my cafe con leche here with my cup turned around because I don't want to get in trouble for, the B. And of course, I have Pantalones right here. We have the anejo, by the way. If you haven't heard of Pantalones, it's kind of like a play on words. They like to be like, very funny. And of course, it is a celebrity-backed tequila. It is co-founded by Matthew McConaughey and Camila McConaughey. So it's got some star power behind it. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in my coffee because it is almost 5 o'clock somewhere. And what's better than coffee with a little bit of tequila? Of course, it is amazing because it is 100% organic, no additives, just pure blue Weber agave from Jalisco. It's fun and fearless, of course, with the whole Pantalones because, you don't want to take your tequila too seriously. You don't want to take yourself too seriously, and you want to have fun. And of course, it is farm to bottle. Pantalones is crafted on a family estate in Amatarian, honoring the generations of tequila making tradition. So whether you mix or sip, which we're mixing today, because last time we just took a shot and called it a day, it is a crowd pleaser every single time. So grab your glass, take a sip, and get ready because today's conversation with Emilio Tirado will leave you smarter. I like to say smarter in seconds, but that's somebody else's show, so we can't use that as well. But let's get into it. So first and foremost, Emilio, thank you so much for being here. I, of course, know you very well, but for those who don't, can you just kind of give us a little bit of your background and how you came to be at Coro?
Yeah. I came from the world of theater, restaurants, and retail in my 20s, and then found sales later in life. Started with software development, software-defined wide area networks, so something called SD-WAN. Basically intelligent networks that can prioritize traffic and make sure unimportant things aren't clogging up important things. And then made my way into cybersecurity here a few years ago with Coro, mostly because I've really been on a mission to I want to find good quality tech and get it in the hands of Southern customers from where I come from here in Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana. And I think Coro is in a unique position to do that. So joined on last April, and it's been a lot of fun ever since.
I cannot tell you. I love it. So Coro is known for simplifying cybersecurity for lean IT teams, right? So how do you feel that Coro specifically eases the burden for, small businesses that don't have this huge IT staff,
I think there's a lot of things we do that we'll get into today that really answer that question. But one of the first things is a single pane of glass and a dashboard that anybody can understand. We don't use a lot of geek speak. Any amateur could log into our dashboard, get an idea of what's going on, and remediation is as easy as the click of a button. That's a big thing. A lot of security, there's a lot of intimidation factor used in cybersecurity, and we're big believers in pragmatism. There's 4 primary pillars that have to be protected: your email, your endpoints, your cloud applications, and your data, anything you're storing. And covering that can be easier than it seems. And that's really the core mission, is to make it easy to cover all four in one place. Automation is big for us as well. Our AI machine learning remediates about 95% of tickets. So core customers don't spend a lot of time having to investigate, and a lot of times remediating and sorting through multiple dashboards. They come in, close out their tickets, call it a day.
No, I love that. And one thing that I didn't have on here for those who may be asking, like if Coro is a great solution for them. But I love when you talk about this, because what size client is great for Coro?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, we can serve, I have customers with one user, absolutely fine. I think our ideal range, honestly, is anywhere from, 1 to 500. We've served larger customers than that. We absolutely do. But in terms of customers who are really looking for the easy button with a small IT team, who are not looking to take a tool and customize it, make it their own tool and become cybersecurity professionals, we're really for the other side, the people who want cybersecurity to be easy to understand. They want to understand exactly the return that they're getting for the investment that they're putting in as well.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of times businesses, especially when they're like smaller, when you're talking on those companies that have 1, 5, 10, 12, 15 employees, they're like, oh, I'm so tiny, nobody's noticing me. But I think we all know that, just because you haven't heard of Pizza Palace down the way, so I apologize if there's a Pizza Palace anywhere, that's just a name that I made up for the record, getting hit because they're not an IPO, they're not a publicly traded company. So while there are some, PCI compliance things that they should be doing, a lot of times they're not letting people know, hey, we've had this event. They're just like trying to keep it on the low. So what do you think makes Coro's approach to this especially suited for the small businesses that really are some of the most vulnerable businesses to cybersecurity attacks in this day and age?
I would say it's because we really built the product from the ground up with that customer in mind, as opposed to most of our solutions out there today were built with enterprise in mind, because enterprise was the primary cybersecurity space. And if you wanted to make money, that's where you sold. And so a lot of our competitors have been trying to bring their tool down to the market, usually with pricing. But still, unfortunately, in terms of UI and UX, it's still an enterprise level feel. So that's an advantage we have. But when we started in 2018, we had the small customer in mind. The way we built the software, I could teach any front office person how to manage this and remediate tickets for all of their users in a day easily.
I love that. I know that you talked about it a little bit, but Coro's all-in-one platform is a very powerful solution that you guys have, giving that kind of like across the board ease of use. How do you explain to a business owner or to a small IT staff, how do you benefit from this, and how do they scale up per se as they grow?
Yeah. Well, scalability is a big thing with Coro, because you can start with a couple of features and grow from there. And the way we've designed our product is that features roll out of the box according to the NIST framework, which is a security compliance framework that's big in our world here. But it's a set of standards that basically you need to adhere to. And a lot of times you have to configure your tool to get to that point. And we start at that point. So a lot of things roll out of the box automated. And then in terms of turning on those features, adding them is the click of a button. The endpoint agent itself is automatic. Once it's installed, it's automatically blocking a lot of potentially dangerous processes, things like scheduled tasks and stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I think there's kind of a mix. So the two biggest things that small businesses look at, obviously, is ease of use, which we already discussed with the dashboard, and secondary would be budget. So how do you feel like Coro, obviously we've discussed ease of use, but how does it address budget for your smaller and medium-sized customers, where they're like, okay, what are we getting for our money? How do we know? And the return on investment for this, where is it at?
Yeah, I think a lot of that, the ease of use arguments can always come back, but it's also going to be the breadth of coverage that we provide without requiring the multiple vendors. Because, for a lot of companies, they do know they got to protect their endpoint, their email, their data, but they're often using multiple solutions. And even if those solutions individually might be affordable, when you combine it, it obviously adds up. And then you have to factor in labor hours, the amount of time employees might be spending going through different dashboards, remediating tickets across. So Coro is able not only able to offer a competitive price to begin with for consolidated services, as well as our individual services, but then we'll really help on the labor hour side.
Yeah, and I really like that because I'm going to repeat it again. It's that dashboard, like having that like kind of one spot to look at, and the AI aspect, obviously, which would be, you know, the trend word of, I feel like it's never going away. But having all that, I know recently that you guys added security awareness training, which I think really addresses, I'm not gonna say one of the biggest, but I think what is the percentage? It's like 85 to 95% of all cybersecurity attacks are technically caused because of human error. So with adding that, you know, how is the training tailored for more like a non-technical user, or things to look out for?
Yeah, it's really because user behavior is one of the biggest gaps out there, and so what the security awareness training is around is to help with the user mindset, to get people thinking more proactively and protectively about any information they might give out in any scenario. We're too quick to click on gift cards or missing passwords or overdue bills, anything like that designed to elicit emotion and get you to click, without thinking ahead of time. So we're trying to really help users analyze things better for themselves, and we do that in a couple of different ways. There's different phishing simulations you can run that look very, very believable, and I guarantee you some people would click on. And then when people do click on and make mistakes, then they get customized videos that come towards them, showing them how they can improve that particular behavior, things that they didn't understand that they should have looked out for, markers of a potential phishing or spam email, things like that. And then we continue to customize that training over 12-month cycles. So, so as you're, and then onboarding is important too. New employees can be dangerous. So there's its own separate 30-day onboarding for security to make sure employees come into the company the right way.
I love that. One of the other things I really like is a story from one of the fellow trusted tech advisors that I work with, because he tells the story about how he had done a proof of concept with Coro, and the company had just kind of, like, let's say, set it and forget it. They'd put in the email filtering, they put in the spam for protection, they'd done all this, and they set it and forget it. And at one point, Coro's like, okay, are we going to move forward? Are we not? And I don't know how that all discussion went, but when I was talking to this tech advisor, he goes, here's the thing. I get a call and this customer is like, okay, I don't know what happened, but I went from having like 0 spam in my email box to having like 25, 30 spam emails coming in every day that I wasn't getting before. And he's like, yeah, that's because y'all turned your Coro off. And he was like, just that right there alone is worth putting it back on, because it was protecting for all that, which kind of leads into what you were talking about with security awareness, because we all know, and I won't say Maria, Karen, whomever, or, John is the one that's going to click on that free t-shirt, that ends up being something it's not supposed to, which, ransomware and phishing still remain some of the top threats. What does Coro do differently from, per se, some other companies to really, really make sure that these specific types of attacks are either filtered out or addressed very quickly?
Yeah, it's honestly the breadth of coverage, being able to see multiple attack vectors. There's different attacks that come in over email. There's different attacks that can get embedded into your cloud applications that can then move their way onto the computer. There's attacks that can come from visiting the wrong website, and downloads can happen. So with all of those different ways of coming in, I think what Core really helps is the fact that we have a shared data mindset here. We see spam emails coming into a particular user, and then we see a user perhaps logging in at a strange time, and we're able to catch that activity and see that potentially there's a identity compromise going on. We're looking at login times. We're looking at application access. We're looking at a lot of things. The data governance is very big for us, being able to see who is exposing and sharing, communicating certain information, storing information. Having all of those things seen by one single data engine and one endpoint agent makes it a lot faster for us to be able to catch suspicious user activity, as opposed to having to, say, pull in information from other products into an integrated place to then analyze that information.
Yeah, Coro really does a good job of obviously filtering out emails that are, I like to call, naughty, but also it's like if you have somebody that magically is doing this impossible travel that like at 8 p.m. was logging on in Austin and now all of a sudden they're showing up in Thailand, it's like, woo, this is not supposed to be here, like, at all.
Or even if someone's logging in Austin and 15 minutes later they're logging in Missouri, like we're going to catch on that as well as a potential issue there. There's a lot of processes. There's a lot of normal processes that happen every day on a computer. There are some that are, when correlated with other different events at the same time, can be indicative of an attack, and that's something we help with as well. Creating scheduled tasks is not unusual. Creating scheduled tasks at certain times at night and right after a user's change their own access permissions is a very different conversation to have, however. So that's really where the tool comes in hand, because, for the average citizen, they're not going to know to correlate these kind of things. So correlation is everything for us.
Well, I know that we were talking about some small and medium-sized companies having kind of, a smaller IT staff, or if they have one at all, or outsourcing. What kind of onboarding and support does Coro offer to make implementation easy and stress-free, especially for these, well, let's just say any company wants a easy, stress-free onboarding as much as possible.
Yeah, well, we make it easy. We start customers with the trials. They can get comfortable with the service and platform. If they're going to be self-managing, then we do education for those admins to learn how to remediate correctly within the platform and resolve their tickets. If they want to employ our management services and have us do all the ticket remediation and onboardings, et cetera, then that's a very easy process. Then there's literally a few permissions that get changed, and the customer doesn't notice that much, except, now there's a suspected folder in their email inbox that they go through and they mark safe or dangerous, and they might lose access to certain sites that their boss may not want them going to in social media and things like that. But yeah, so it just depends on the routes we're on. But if users are going to self-manage the solution, training is very easy. We get the whole thing done in a day. You don't have to turn off your systems to implement Coro. So it's a very, very smooth process there.
Yeah, and I like to add in, one of the things that's really cool about Coro is, you can get the whole enchilada, but if you just need a piece, you can also break out a piece of your solution. So, let's say for, whatever the company is, they're waiting for contracts to expire to take advantage of everything. They're very capable of moving forward in that manner as well.
Correct. Like they might already have contracts for the next 6 months for their endpoint, their email security, but they may not be tracking who's exposing personal information and business sensitive info. So they could start with those couple of services, and then as contracts expire, flip on the email and the endpoint and just grow from there.
Exactly. Now, of course, as a small business or any size business, you want to grow and you want to evolve. So how does Coro help businesses evolve, especially with their security posture as its digital footprint expands?
Well, as being users of Coro, you get the advancements of our own advancements. Our AI, we have an open source code here, which means our AI is editing its own source code as new tickets are closed by users. Every phishing email reported adds to the intelligence. Every process that gets blocked and put on a block list adds to that intelligence as well. And Coro is constantly reinvesting into its own product to bring out new features like the security awareness training that came out this month, or the ability to limit access to particular websites only for certain employees. Like you may only want sales going into your Salesforce, you may not want marketing in there, et cetera. So, yeah.
Yeah, basically at that point, you're helping kind of create a zero trust network in essence, because you're like, these employees need to access this, but these employees shouldn't be accessing this. And if they're trying, then we need to know what's going on and why that's happening.
Exactly. Like you probably don't want anybody outside of your accounting accessing your QuickBooks and things like that. You probably don't want anybody not in the right department accessing your ERP in general. So you can limit that kind of access. You can make sure if you have a spread out company or remote users, you can make sure users are logging in from the appropriate places as well. There's a lot of functionality within there.
So I know Coro's platform includes quite a few integrated security models. Which 2 or 3 would you recommend for someone who is like dipping their toes into the cybersecurity path? Like they know they have to do something, but what would you recommend that they start with?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of small businesses are really doing the bare essentials. They're probably running a Norton antivirus on their machines, and they probably have a spam filter. So I would say test out the difference in our email and our endpoint security to see for yourself. It's a great starting place to see what those upgrades really look like and what the difference in experience will be. Because then with the endpoint security, you have things like EDR. You have the ability to go in and troubleshoot on computers and do things that you would not be able to do with standard AV that people have. Because an AV is an automatic. It's great if it recognizes that particular virus. It'll go ahead and block it. If you have next gen AV, that's there to block unknown viruses, but potentially malicious. But without EDR, which is detection and response, the ability to respond to attacks, there's just not that much point to the AV. So we make that, and that's a big upgrade that we make easy for people.
And just for the record, when you're looking at Coro, what signifies like an endpoint, or how is that signified within the organization? Because one user could have a laptop and a tablet and a desktop computer.
Correct. So endpoint is anywhere that you can put software on. So that could be a laptop, a device. It could be a server. It would count as an endpoint as well. I guess an Apple Watch. I've never seen anybody use that yet for work, but that's a new world we're all moving into. I'm sure we'll have corporate issued Apple Watches here in the next 10 years. But yeah, any of those that are defined as an endpoint, anything a user is utilizing that runs software.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that I was really interested in when talking to you is kind of your mobile devices, is as using that as an endpoint, because, I work with a lot of companies that are like, we have employees that have tablets, but I don't want them to go to YouTube or go here or go that. And you guys have a solution for that as well.
We do, yeah. We can restrict. It's something called DNS filtration, domain name service filtration. Basically, just making sure that all the mobile devices running the Coro agent under policy cannot access certain sites. We can also, if it's especially company issued, we can control password management, application whitelisting, blacklisting, basically allowing or disallowing certain applications to be downloaded, and obviously the ability to remote wipe a lost or stolen device.
Yeah, which, I know that we don't think about it. Well, I say we don't think about it, but a lot of people don't think about the fact like, oh, if somebody loses a company phone and you have intellectual property on it, that is a source that could actually hurt you guys in the long run.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Yeah, big time. Awesome.
Well, I know Coro has had rapid growth and lots of industry recognition lately. How is Coro staying committed to the unique needs of kind of their small and medium-sized clients? Because I know you said really, you can have one, you can have 500, or you could have 1,000. What are you guys doing to make sure that you are, staying true and honoring that?
Yeah, that's where hiring has come in. We've brought in more reps, account managers as well, to be able to deal more directly and give that more white glove service to our direct and our partner accounts there. It's very big. Streamlining our own service to make things a little bit more efficient as well is making it easier for account managers to spend time with those accounts. Growing our customer service and enablement side as well to make sure customers still have their hands held 6 months and a year after making their Coro purchase. Those are all the big initiatives for us.
I love that, because everybody, especially, let's be very transparent. No matter your enterprise, small, medium, whatever, wants white glove service, because they want to have a little bit of hand holding when necessary, because there's nothing, we won't say the name of the company, but there's nothing like trying to get a hold of somebody and, getting transferred 17 times to get one question answered. So
correct. That's why we try to be the Coro difference.
Exactly. Well, we covered a lot today, but if you have anything that you really want people to remember Coro either for or really want to point out, what would that be?
I would say that cybersecurity doesn't have to be hard or scary. When you look at those 4 pillars: cloud, endpoint, which is your devices, cloud applications, and data, those things are all very protectable. And with these, yes, there's AI involved in hacking nowadays. And yes, there's phishing as a service where people can just download lists from the black market and put millions of people on these phishing email lists. But they're not looking for people who don't have the perfect product. They're looking for people who are unprotected. And if you can at least do the basics and cover those 4 basics to get started, that will take you out of a very large pool of targets. And that's the name of the game, is getting out of the pool of what the hackers consider low-hanging fruit.
Well, and really, when you think about it, that goes back to what we were talking about. So whether you go with like one of the solutions or multiple solutions, it's, you have to start somewhere with your security posture, right? And, just closing your eyes or digging your head in the sand is definitely not the answer for anybody.
Right. Especially a small business. They put so much work and effort and sacrifice to make that business work. It's like you hate to see a small, easy, simple solution that could have prevented a massive problem not being there in time,
Exactly. Now, of course, I know where to find you, but if someone is either looking for Coro or looking to find out some more information, Emilio, what is the best place for them to find that at?
Yeah, our website, coro.net, is going to provide a lot of great information there. And then my email, emilio.tirado@coro.net, we're able to provide that thing. That's a great source. to bring you in at. Yeah, I would say those are the two best starting places there. And obviously talking to Kat Shelby.
That's right. That's right. Talking to, of course, Kat Shelby at Shelby Technology Solutions, or a myriad of wonderful, trusted technology advisors that are in the channel. So, I really appreciate you being on. I think you have covered so much. And of course, we could always cover more with security, but I think for this episode, that is a wrap. So a huge thanks, of course, Mr. Emilio and your team at Coro, number one, for shedding light on how businesses of any size can stay cyber secure without breaking the bank, which is very important. And of course, if today's episode got you thinking differently about cybersecurity or just gave you an excuse to try some Pantalones and some tequila, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow business owner who could use a little tech-savvy backup or an idea of a different solution maybe they haven't heard of. So until next time, keep sipping, building bold initiatives within your company, and protecting what matters. So cheers. And thank you again, Emilio.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.